I'll first of all ask Callistus this. On several occasions, of course, a person who's so much so interested in matters governance, I've asked you whether you'd want to venture into politics, and you've constantly said no, 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 in as much as you have so much high interest in regards to matters governance. I would want to understand whether you think there's any, goodwill and there's any, of course, genuineness on the BBI in regards to addressing the issues, or like you rightfully put it, or you've told me a couple of times that, when you get into politics, it's pretty much hard for you to have the genuine interest of the people. It's pretty much hard to ensure that you award what is rightful for the people to the people.
Okay. In my view, the BBI report is a disappointment to us Kenyans because it does not raise the pertinent issues affecting Kenyans.
Right.
It only focused on clarifying some few items to make it look like it is a report for us Kenyans, but it is not. The report has addressed issues that cannot affect anything. That's why you can see those people who are opposed to BBI are clarifying it, because they know there's nothing going to change.
Right.
So I think Kenyans should now start thinking on how they should address their issues. If it remains going to a revolution, then it will have to happen, because it has taken us too far. People are suffering. We told this PPI when we faced them, we told them that the issues that are affecting the country are a misuse and a misappropriation of funds. Secondly, corruptions. So how can we deal with corruption if we cannot propose radical changes that can change the system so that we have checks and balances to avoid these corruptions? So the BPI, the report that they have brought, is a report, I think, only helping the so-called political class, so that in the name of building bridges, uniting. So they want to unite us so that they can now eat more from us. So we are telling the country now to read this document, and we expect the conversation to take a different direction. We do not want to appear before any politician and propose something that is going to affect him. Do you think when we appeared before the PPI, we proposed to scrub off Senate? Then we were talking to Senator Yusuf Haji and Senator Wamsiwago. They were just laughing at us. How can they dare sitting down and talking, discussing on how to scrub off Senate and their senators? How we proposed about the ensuring that we introduce job group to these politicians so that we balance, because we talk about high wage bill in the country, but when you look at Kenyans, ordinary Kenyans are being paid a very low salary. So we cannot talk about how we can reduce anything from Kenyans. Those the small one. These politicians are taking too much from the people.
In other words, the proposals, some of the key proposals were never captured in the report.
Yes.
And you don't feel it will be the cure point of the country's political problems?
I don't think so, because...
What do you expect? What did you expect it to feature in that report? Because you said the content...
We proposed for them that...
You as an entity, because there were more than 82 entities that appeared before the BBI, so it might sound selfish for you if you want all your input to be implemented, isn't it?
In fact, the items that we are seeing there looking good, we are the people who gave them.
All right.
But they
What are some of the proposals that you made, for instance?
We proposed that we have an opposition leader getting to parliament, then the deputy president assuming the business of the house for the purpose of inclusivity. So that we cannot talk about changing the system from president to parliamentary in the name of inclusivity. And inclusivity will never be achieved in Kenya. In fact, discussing inclusivity is the same as discussing tribalism.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It is just simple as that.
Okay. Because we'll come to that, because there are many elements to unpack equally. Dr. Juma, if I may come to you, good morning.
Good morning.
And we all see or witness the happen instances afterwards, the handing over and unveiling of the report. In your view, parliamentary or referendum?
Well, the Constitution provides for both options. In Article 55, discuss elaborately, and subsection Article 56 and 57. 56 discuss parliamentary initiative to amend the Constitution. And the process, yes, anyone can introduce a bill, whether to the parliament, and of course through the speaker. After review, I think should be considered after, I think, 90 days. And then both the speaker, the houses will jointly, submit the same to the eventually to the president, who eventually will forward the same process to independent and boundary IEBC for purposes of referendum. That is one. And through popular initiative, is also possible through either a suggestion or a drafted bill, which one would submit to IEBC, which to the same after 90 days shall submit to county assemblies for purposes of discussion and approval. You're aware of Punguza Mzigo process. And when approved or not, when approved, then yes, it will go back to the parliament and eventually to the people, whether parliament passes or not. And these are provisions that are within the constitution. Okay, one clarity that one needs to bring on the table, especially to Kenyan citizens right now who probably have been hyped up by politicians, because as a party leader, all political parties have their own campaign agendas.
Yes.
And all we need to identify with is whether they resonate with our interest or not. And we might be caught up in hot air that actually are geared towards political parties' interest and not the citizens' interest. So I would urge or caution citizens not to think that life begin and end with BBI. Though BBI has pointed out some fundamental issues that ought to have been addressed before 1963. Because when you're talking about ethos, and you're talking about values and responsibilities, there are indeed real issues that are affecting our society. If you go to a Kenyan family and you're talking about parenting, in line with our current education curriculum and the output, because where I come from, Scripture says that you shall judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. And if it is a mango, it will bear mango what? Mango fruit. If it is an orange, it will bear what? Orange fruit. So the way we've raised our children to date actually neglected, because it's even capturing very weighty matters like history and our identity. Currently, our history is as per the colonial definition. People are clustered as per the migration routes. If you followed the forest, you are called a Bantu. Bantu is the Greek word for forest. If you followed the river, you are called a Nilot. Nilot is the Greek word for running water. And that does really not connect somebody with concrete identity of who you truly are. Who was your grandfather? Who was your origin? Forest never gave birth to anybody. So this identity crisis actually is what has left our society vulnerable to Western influences, which actually are not concrete and does not have proper value connection. And that ought to have been addressed then, so that this should have been the content of what we teach and how we bring our children.